Hello friends, welcome to Shiksharthi. In this video, we'll be talking about clocks. So let's start. So as you recall, in the first video on clocks, we had basically talked about two things. The first thing was what is the velocity of the three hands of a clock, which is the minutes hand, the hours hand and the seconds hand. And the second thing that we had talked about was what is the angle that is made between the hours hand and the minutes hand at a particular time. Now taking that discussion forward, what I'm going to do here is, we had discussed these 2 points, point number 1 and point number 2. Now in this video, we'll be talking about point number 3 and point number 4. So starting off with point number 3. Now point number 3 basically talks about, so before I start, I'll just give you a brief preview of the same. So point number 3 talks about if there is a question like how many times in 12 hours do both the hands meet. When we talk about both the hands, we are basically referring to the hours hand and the minutes hand. So in a period of 12 hours, how many times would they meet? So the first interpretation that an education seeker needs to do at this stage is, the moment it is said that how many times would the hands meet, that means you need to understand that the angle as being made between both the hands is 0 degrees, right? Once you have ascertained this, then you can use the concept that we had discussed. So we are talking about the concept number 2. So at a particular time, now the time here is h colon m is the time. So we are talking about m minutes past h hours. So here we are talking about h hours and m minutes, another way of understanding the same. For example, if this would have been 3:15, there are two ways of communicating the time. One way is I say 15 minutes past 3, or I say the time is 3 hours and 15 minutes. Basically two ways of representing or communicating the time. Okay, so now in this case, when the angle is 0 degrees between the hands, is just like saying that the angle how many times would both the hands meet in 12 hours. So now why did we get these two values? I think it will be very obvious to say that one could be the acute angle that we are getting and the other one could be the obtuse angle that we are getting here, right? Or maybe both the angles are acute angles only. Okay, so now the moment we substitute the value of theta as 0 degrees, in either of the equations, either of them, what do we get? We get nothing but m by h is equal to 60 by 11. So as I keep on substituting, so how many values of h can I take? Though, before this you would have said, as we had discussed last time also, that h takes how many values? H takes 12 values. But here we will see h can take how many values in 12 hours? We'll see that. So once we start substituting the values of h as 1, and then we get the value of m as 60 by 11, h as 2, and then we get the value as 120 by 11. Similarly, when we keep on substituting the values, when we substitute h is equal to 10, in that case we are getting 600 by 11 minutes past 10. So for example, in all these 10 cases, when we are talking about h is equal to 1 to h is equal to 10, we are talking about m minutes past h hours, past h. So for example, this is 60 by 11 minutes past 1, or another way as we had discussed earlier was, this will be communicated as 1 hour and 60 by 11 minutes. This will be communicated as 2 hours and 120 by 11 minutes, or another way here is 120 by 11 minutes past 2 is the second time when the hands would be meeting after 12 o'clock, let's say. Okay, so the 10th time, so can I say this is the first time when the hands meet? This is the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th, 9th and 10th. The 10th time when they are meeting after 12, what would be the time? The time would be 10 colon 600 by 11. This is the format that we are using throughout this discussion. Okay, Incidentally, when we substitute the value of h as 11, we get m is equal to 60. So this is just like saying 60 minutes past 11. Now when you say 60 minutes past 11, it is just like saying 12 o'clock. So you will see how many times do they meet in 12 hours. The hands meet 11 times in 12 hours. How many times would they meet in 24 hours? 22 times. And this is how you can extrapolate. How many times in 36 hours? 33 times, and so on. So what is the time duration here? Can I say from 1 to 12 or 12 to 1? So let's say from a 12, either I can say from a 1 to 12 or I can say from a 12 to 1. How many times do they meet? They meet 11 times in 12 hours. The second point that arises here is, after the basic discussion that we have done under the point number 3, is when we say that the hands would be making an angle of 0 degrees 11 times in 12 hours, and we are saying these 12 hours are from, let's say, hour number 1 to hour number 11 or hour number 12. So can we say that in any 12 hours, now when I say any 12 hours, I could have started the hours from 2, and in that case the hours end on 1. How? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and so on. So now I'll come back again. So if I start counting from here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So the answer still remains the same. So now this discussion I am leaving up to you. Now what is the discussion? I know for sure that from either from 1 to 12 or 12 to 1, how many times in 12 hours the hands would meet? The answer is 11 times. Can I extrapolate this and can I say that in any 12 hours the hands would make an angle of 0 degrees 11 times? This is up to you. Okay, the final discussion here. So now final discussion here is, when would the hands, now when we are talking about the hands, we are basically talking about the minute's hand and the hour's hand, making an angle of 90 degrees between them. So using the same formula, which formula are we going to use now? This formula and this formula. So you will see, this is just like saying, now I have divided this discussion into two parts. One part, so here h is equal to 1 to h is equal to 12 as we had done here. And similarly what I am doing here is, now on the left hand side I am using m is equal to 2 by 11 times of 30h minus 90. So you can just rejig the formulas, and on the other side I am using m is equal to 2 by 11 times of 30h plus 90 degrees. So let me remove this 90 degrees because the answer should be in minutes. Okay, now I am substituting the value of h here and then I am getting the number of minutes. So you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and analogously how many minutes should I get from here? I should get 12 different values from here and I should get 12 different values from here. But when I start doing this, when I substitute the values, the very first value that I get from here is minus 120 by 11. And you know that the number of minutes will always be greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 60 degrees. Now how will you understand this? This is just like saying you are subtracting it. I mean, you need to go back. Now when I am going back, I am going back from 1 hour. So that means this is the time wherein it should be 12 past 12. So when I am going back from 1 hour, and how many minutes am I going back? So can I put it like this? This h is equal to 1 can be understood as 12 plus 1, right? And then from here I subtract what? 120 by 11. From where am I subtracting 120 by 11? From 1 I am subtracting 120 by 11. Now when I say from 1, actually I am subtracting it from a 60 minute because this is 1 hour. So when I do this, this comes out to be 540 by 11 minutes past 12. So am I given to understand from here, or I'm given to understand from here, between 12 and 1, how many times the angle between both the hands, that is between the hour's hand and the minute's hand, the angle as made would be 90 degrees. So let's see it from the table. Oh, there is one more. So there are 2 times between 12 and 1. There are 2 times between 12 and 1. Right. Similarly, so I hope you would have understood this. You just need to understand this table once again. So once you would have understood the basics that I have already explained it to you, please see that all these values that I have written here, and this is the time that I have written. So as I had done in point number 3, the same thing I am doing it with point number 4. So once I do this, incidentally when I come across this, I get the value here as m is equal to 0. Now m is equal to 0 is just like saying 0 minutes after 3. That means at 3 o'clock, similarly I got the value of m is equal to 60 after 8 hours, which is just like saying this goes in this, right? So when it goes in this, can I say that m becomes equal to 0 here, and here I am not supposed to take any value. So when you count the number of cases, you will see that 22 times in 12 hours. So when we say 12 hours, we are basically referring to 1 to 12, or we are referring to 12 to 1. So how many times? 22 times. The clock, the hands would make an angle of 90 degrees between both the hands, the hours hand and the minutes hand. I would expect that you understand it like this, and then the second thing that you are expected to do after this is, please find out that between any 2 successive hours, for example, we just found out between 12 and 1, how many times would they meet? I mean, how many times would they make an angle of 90 degrees? So we found out that this is going to happen twice. Now, if it keeps on happening twice for all 24 hours, that means in that case, they should have met how many times? They should have met 24 times. But then here and here. So if I say between 3 and 4, so from 3 to 4, now rather than saying between 3 and 4, let's say from 12 to 1, how many times? 2 times. Now from 3 o'clock to a 4 o'clock, from 3 o'clock to a 4 o'clock, how many times would they meet? They would meet 2 times. Similarly, from a 4 o'clock to a 5 o'clock, from a 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock 2 times. So please find out which are the hours between which or from this hour to this hour they'll be meeting exactly once. Because in that case, if they keep on meeting twice in every hour, then the answer should be 24 times. So this is the second thing that you are expected to do here, which you are expected to take it as a take home. Right? The final thing for today. So I am giving it to you as a homework now. So you experience now that when theta was equal to 0 degrees, when the angle as made between both the hands was 0 degrees, then they were meeting 11 times in 12 hours or in any 12 hours. Similarly, they are making an angle of 90 degrees 22 times in 12 hours or in any 12 hours. So you need to infer that when theta is equal to 180 degrees, will they meet 11 times in 12 hours or will they meet 22 times in 12 hours? For which you need to draw a similar kind of a table, and then you can count the number of cases after you would have either written the minutes or you would have written the time per se. And then the final thing that you are expected to do is, you are expected to divide the entire discussion into few parts. Now when I say few parts, that means theta is equal to 0 degrees, how many times would they meet? So we already discussed they would meet 11 times in 12 hours. So similarly, when theta is between a 0 to a 90 degrees, how many times would they meet? Similarly, the next thing that you are expected to do here is when theta is equal to 90 degrees, you already have the answer. How many times would they meet in 12 hours? We are talking about meeting time in 12 hours. Similarly, when theta is between a 90 degrees to 180 degrees, how many times would they meet? And the last case here is, in any case, this case has been given to you as a homework. So broadly, if you would see, there are 3 homeworks which have been given to you, out of which 2 we have already done. Now for this, you can take a special case here. For example, I can take the value of theta as 89 degrees. And let us say if theta is equal to 89 degrees, you are getting, let's say you are getting 22 cases. Let's assume. So in that case, you can just extrapolate and you can say if theta is between a 0 degrees to a 90 degrees, how many times? Let's say 22 times. Here you can take a special case as theta is equal to 91 degrees. And whatever the answer is, the answer has to be either 11 times or 22 times. There cannot be any other answer other than this. So this question mark, half of the answer you, in any case, you know. Either the answer has to be 11 or 22. Which exactly is going to be the answer? 50% solution is already there in the hands. 50% solution, you have to work hard for it. Right? I hope you learned something from this session. If you feel that this session was really knowledgeable and both the videos put together enhances your knowledge base on clocks, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. If you have already done so, click on the bell icon and select all so that you start receiving regular updates from us. If you want that we should do some specific videos on specific topics, please put it in the comment section. Thank you so much. Until next time we meet, goodbye.